What's up, everyone? Kane here, Captain of the Day's Pirates. Gonna be coming at you with a regional recap for this past weekend. I played in the TopCut Madison Regional November, 512 player cap. Tiny bit of a spoiler alert, so maybe skip ahead like 5 seconds if you don't want to know exactly how it went. I'm not going to say exactly how it went, but I did not top 64 or above, or I would have let you know about that. But overall, very happy with the deck, the decisions I made, and kind of how the day went as a whole. So we'll be breaking all of that down. As we jump into this, guys, if you're enjoying it, if you like RP Luffy, you want to see an 09 top from me, please like, comment, subscribe. Subscribing for the channel. We are looking to get monetized for 09 and do a giveaway if we hit 500 subscribers. I will be doing something whenever that does happen. We're at 273 right now, which is awesome. Appreciate the support. Got to keep supporting the new RP Luffy AAs and SPs that I got to get next set. So got to get the channel rolling, and I do appreciate the support. So if you don't mind subscribing, please do so. But first here, I'm going to run through the deck list. And you might remember if you watched my last regional recap, I had like a slideshow where I went through a lot of things and talked about all the matchups. I'm going to kind of do a back and forth between a slideshow and a little bit of live. I'm actually going to try and set up some of the scenarios and key decisions throughout some of my matchups. So hopefully that'll be interesting content for y'all. But there will be kind of a little bit of a spoiler slide, so I'll have that time stamped if you want to skip, or if you just want to know exactly how the record went in the matches, I'll have a real quick summary. And if you want to skip over that and maybe see it at the end or kind of go through all the matches, I'll have it all time stamped for you. But for the deck overall, like I said, I'm very happy with every decision I made. No regrets by a single card choice. Got a little bit of help from one of the local guys. U-Bound is helping me kind of refine the list going into this event. So appreciated the feedback and additional notes there. But yeah. So RP Luffy, if you're here, you might know he's our 6,000 power leader, red purple, 3 life, because as a trade-off for that 6,000 power. And then if we're at 0 or 8 plus Don, we can just get an active Don once per turn. So free ramping when you're at the top of your curve, or when you do Don minus effects. I'm going to start off here with kind of our Straw Hat counter package, I guess. Relatively quick conversation here. Our 4 Namis, we did finish the set of beautiful SPs. Like I've said to some people, I think this is my favorite card in the game. Finishing that set's pretty exciting for me. I love the SP style in general. We are on 2 Jet Gatlings right now. I did realize that with the next set, these are getting cut because of the way Gum Gum Giant works out, which makes total sense to me. So yeah, I guess that makes slots for Gum Gum Giant next set. But yeah, 2 of those just to kind of need to declunk. I guess one thing as we're jumping into this, and I'll talk about it a couple different points, but obviously this 8.5 format, Doflamingo is the problem, or is the elephant in the room. Either you need to be playing Doflamingo or you need to have a plan to beat Doflamingo, basically. And I did face 4 Doflamingos out of 9 rounds, so I did play to that, and I am pretty happy with the decisions I made based on that. But this Jet Gatling right now, all that to say, right now the deck is down to 16 cards with no counter. I don't count like a Radical Beam as a brick, or I don't count like other things as a brick, but like as far as characters with no counter or Diablo Jambes, I have 16 total, which is the least I've ever been on in the deck. And it is, again, just accounting for every single card mattering so much into that Doflamingo matchup. But yeah, we'll get more into that. So only 16 cards with no counter. But that Jet Gatling kind of just acts as a 2K / declutterer as we're going through things. So we love it. Our Radical Beams, if you have 2 or less life, it's a 1 cost 4,000 power counter. So this is how we kind of trade back a 2 for 1 and are able to kind of secure some late game wins. Usohachi, this is a new card from the new starter deck. It is phenomenal. This is probably one of the best purple 2Ks that exists now. I think every deck is probably going to play it in purple or be very heavily considering it. Even if you can't search it, it's just a win con. If you have 8 or more Don, rest a 5 or less character for 3 Don, and it's also just a 2K. Us being on our Straw Hat Searcher, 4, I will never not have 4 Usohachis in the deck again. Then we have our Sanjis. Again, since 07, I've been preaching how great these are. We need 1 more AA to finish off the set. But yeah, after Gear 5, you can play it, or it's just a blocker, or it's a 2K. Usually, I think this weekend, I don't think I played it out at all. It was only 2K. But yeah, it can come up. Zoro Juro. All right, so going into kind of I guess the deck mid-game staples, I guess is what this section I'm kind of calling. It's really going to be our ramp package and then a couple blockers. I did simplify things here. Again, I know I've spoken on It's to Die For, and I know some people are playing with it. But again, just going back to that intentionality of going down in the no counter cards. What I was saying to somebody is I would rather not see ramp in my opening hand than top deck a brick event and lose because I drew 2 events at the end of the game. And that just feels so much worse. Like, we can play through a slow start sometimes, but if it's I need a counter, I need a threat, and I top deck a 0 counter ramp event, it's basically game over. So we are simplified down to 4 Zoro Juros. I did pull the new one out of my event pack, so I might swap in one just to have it. But it's not as textured, so I do really love this art, and I'm going to end up getting those new 09 SPs anyways. So we might not go for a full set of the event pack, but it'll be nice in the meantime. 4 Bonclays. Unfortunate kind of how pricey this card is. I really do think 4 of is, again, just I don't see anytime soon being on less than 4 of these. Until Dofi, sometimes they'll bounce it to your hand. You get a counter back for it after you've gotten your ramp, and that's just perfection. But overall, just a great card on play. Get that acted on. When it attacks, it matches one of your opponent's character's power. Queens. I know I've talked a lot of smack about this card, about how I want to cut it, how I can't wait to cut it, how I'm going to cut it, and here's 4 of them. And I think I'm going to be on 4 of them for a little bit. It just, what it offers, and letting us kind of smooth out our hand. With our lead effect, it also lets us make for 11 Don turns. Any Don -1 effect when we're at 10 Don, we functionally get to play 11 Don when most people don't really get to do that. Helps us filter through the deck. And the biggest thing here is that it's a 5 cost 6K body. That matters for every matchup. The fact that it's 5, yes, there's still ways to remove 5s, but there's way more ways to remove 4 or less for free. And the fact that he can start smacking people for 6K, I mean, it won me a game this weekend, straight up. So that body and stat line is just so important. I do have the one Jolly Roger in there. I do think I'm chasing SP Queens if I'm keeping 4 in there. So I love that style. So it is what it is. All right, now we are getting into some top end and threats. So I mentioned earlier, my John base, I am on 2 of them still. Uso Hachi does kind of, rest a lot of the blockers they're gonna have to deal with. But again, just still Black Yellow Luffy being able to kind of combo with your Gear 5 and just blow them out if they're at 0 life. And just the way that this card has to be played around is still worth including at this current juncture, in my opinion. Some later iterations, or I know 09 lists aren't on it. But right now, it still offers enough value to me to be one of my bricks. I guess maybe slotting those out for other top end could be something that we talk a little bit more about, but John Bay is so phenomenal. Okay, and then I do have some tech cards that I'm going to end with, kind of the only slots that I wasn't 100% like locked into this weekend. I kind of needed some feedback on. I ended up being happy with my decisions, but we'll talk about it. So my top end package, again, Doflamingo Swarm. We are on to 4 kids. I've been a proponent of like 3 kids, 3 Newgates. As long as I've been playing the deck, any deck you've seen me play, I've very rarely had 4 Newgates in there for more than a short period. But the Doflamingo Swarm and consistency, and really, the kids in Newgate chain beats basically any deck besides black. Like, I mean, it's, a little bit anecdotal and not necessarily a fact per se, but like, if I'm making my leader 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 7,000 as we go up my curve and I'm developing these bodies, few decks have ways to truly deal with this. And if I really effectively chain them together and play my matchup, black's the only deck that can really dictate to me whether or not I win the game in a lot of ways. That's not, that's good relatively, but yeah, this 4 kids, and spoiler alert, I'm on 4 Newgates, is just crucial to that Doflamingo matchup. We are also on 3 Rayleighs. Kind of had to make a decision between Rayleighs and Dragons. They're trying to like split these up somehow. The Rayleighs just being able to pop everything small, all small blockers, everything 6K or less. Just it's so good developing a body, being able to play this and neuter and remove something from Doflamingo's board or somebody else's board is phenomenal. I think Ben Beckman in '09 is probably going to push it back out of the deck maybe, but it was great this weekend. And then 4 new gates, on play, get your leader up to 8k. And then the Don X2, when attacking, KO a 3k less. I guess I'm kind of skipped over these last 2 effects. Rayleigh's on play. 2 of your opponent's characters through their next turn one gets minus 3,000, one gets minus 2,000, and you KO a 3,000 or less. So basically anything 6,000 or less, you can remove and you can manipulate the power of a couple characters while you're at it. And then Kid, on play and when attacking, Don -1, and you get plus 1,000 power onto your leader. So that's how I make my leader 7, and then 8. Or if you go this on curve, your leader goes to 7,000, then you play Newgate on the next turn, assuming your Kid wasn't like Red Rocked or something. You then swing with the Kid after playing the Newgate and -1 of your Don, back down to 8, and you are a 9,000 power Luffy through your next turn. It's phenomenal. And then finally, our Gear 5s, we are back up to 3. This won me many games this weekend. Just phenomenal card, up to 3 because we just always want to see it. Can declunk it with some of these other things if we need to, but it just wins games in a way that, well, no other card can really. Oops, sorry, I just bumped my stand there. Then, my last couple kind of decision points, or what I was trying to settle on or discussing going into the weekend, is Nico Robin. If we've been seeing this flex around, I've been speaking on it very highly for the Lucci matchup, any deck playing Rebecca, small blockers, just being able to remove a Rosinante or something like that for 1 Don can be game changing. So at the end of the day, I did decide to keep it. It didn't really come up particularly this weekend. Against Doflamingo, it is just a 1K, but the flexibility into other matchups I do still like on a lot of rights. So I kept 2 in, and it's searchable, so just very flexible. I might be moving away from this slightly. I have kind of, Teddy has been promoting 7-cost Newgate to me, so we might be playing around just slightly with the way that the numbers are distributed. That'll be a video probably later this week. But Standby Robin for this tournament. And Onami. Newer card that a lot of people are pretty happy about with the starter deck. The 4-cost 2K blocker. On play, if you have 8 or more Don, trash a card, draw 2. So kind of similar to a Queen's Effect. Queen's Effect definitely better. She's definitely a much smaller body and stat line. So I wasn't sure if I necessarily needed her. What was contesting these slots to me was Law. And it'll come up later. The Onami was the difference in me winning a game. In a scenario where I would have been able to get Law value, interestingly, they did have 7 cards, and I was low on cards. But being able to just cycle just a tiny bit more. I don't want to spoil it because I want to talk about that. I actually found out an interesting ruling with this card too. So we'll get to that. I think it's around 7 or 8. But yeah, so we're on 2 Onamis, and I think that's a pretty comfortable number for now with kind of having 6 of those blockers that let you declunk. Overall, like I said, very happy with these decisions. The only thing that I'm kind of testing in this 8.5 format now is if I want to play any new gates, the 7-cost new gates. Because Teddy's been speaking pretty highly on it. But at the end of the day, this package did do great for me. And actually, the kind of core to some degree, or a lot of the things here, are very similar to a list that won nationals in Japan this weekend. So pretty happy with that overall. But yeah, I'm going to kind of pivot over to kind of how the gate tournament actually went a little bit more directly. And we can go through some matchups and things like that. Love the deck. Very happy with the games, despite the record not being, fully topping. And great stuff. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Talk to you in a second. Alrighty, pivoting over into kind of walking through some of the matches and some of the content here. So I did actually decide that I'm going to put the kind of wrap up and spoiler slide at the end. So if you don't want to see every round breakdown, you can skip down to that in the timestamps. But that will be the last slide that we end on. So we're going to go from here right into our round 1 matchup. So round 1, Black Yellow Luffy. I'm very excited to sit down for this matchup. and quite frankly, it was a probably could have been a day ruining loss had I let myself get on tilt. Realistically, I sat down, I won the die roll. I choose to go second because I want to deny them their ideal curve. My opening hand is absolutely perfect, and my 4 draws for turn and my 3 life yielded me, I think, 1K counter in total. And yeah, it was a pretty quick game. So I'm gonna cut here, and I did record just kind of basically the entire game. I walked through very quickly as to exactly what happened there. Quite frankly, it just kind of happens in this game. That is the trade-off of being a 3 life leader, admittedly. But we roll with it, and kind of just a pretty bad break. All right. So we are going to attempt to walk through my round 1 real quick as one of the scenarios of what happens. So I won the die roll. I elected to go second, and I got this firsthand. Basically as good as you can wish for, right? You got your turn 2 ramp into turn 3 kid, a search early to filter. This was probably the easiest keep of the day. Snap keep this. My opponent is on Black Yellow Luffy. He elects to go first. He plays Makino, takes 1 of his life, and then rearranges. My turn 2, I do swing at him, and then, first, my turn 1, this is my first kind of thing to mention. I draw for turn, and I get a Rayleigh here. So then I have, another curve piece. Not the best in this matchup, but still solid, so it's fine. Then I play out my Nami. And I don't remember what the full 5 were, but basically I was deciding between a Radical Beam and a Gear 5. And kind of had to think about it for a second. And where I landed was that I would want to Gear 5 to win this matchup. I have a beautiful curve. Usually they're not putting on a much of aggressive force, and quite frankly, I have 3 of these and I have 4 of these. So I'm more likely to find another Rad Beam or more Rad Beams, whereas this can just win me the game, especially with this beautiful curve. So after kind of debating for a moment, I take the Luffy and bottom deck. And then go to turn 2, I draw. I think it's another kid or is another card with no counter is the important piece here. And I did play out my Bond Clay. So one thing I do think I missed here is I think maybe the next draw should have been another 1K counter of some sort. So I think I did have 1 more. Let's say it's a queen maybe. It wasn't a queen because it wasn't a blocker, but doesn't matter. On this turn, I play this out. Swing, he takes that 3rd life, goes down to 2. On his turn 2, my apologies, he did swing at me with this 8K swing from his leader. I only had 2K in counter in hand, so I did have to take it. And maybe that was the 1K that I got. Maybe it wasn't a brick out of life. Maybe that's the one that I'm forgetting. But again, I know for a fact it wasn't a queen. I think it may have been a Robin, actually, because it was a 1K counter that wasn't particularly helpful. But I take that, not that big of a deal. Play out my Bond Clay. Don't threaten Rad Beam down because I don't have one, and I don't really expect them to do too much on their 5 down turn usually. And then what he does is actually he goes to his 5 down turn, uses 2 of his down to play out a kid ace, which then trashes it and gets his ace out of life. And so that's 2 down, and his lead is just 7K now. And then he swings 8K at me with ace. I cannot counter out of it even if I wanted to, so I have to take that. And it's another no counter card. Then he's a 7K leader, and he swings 9K into me, and I have no choice but to take it. And it's a second Gear 5. Now I'm going into my turn 3 on 7 down, and I draw another brick. I remember at this point, I know for a fact I only had 2 1K counters in hand. And then I played out my 7 cost kid. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards in hand and a 7,000 power leader. I pass my turn, and he plays out, I believe he plays either a Sabo out of life somehow or just straight up plays a Sabo. I think he played a Sabo out of life somehow. I can't remember exactly what the sequence was. He may have taken this last life off of my kid swing or something. Actually, no, I swung both my characters into his ace to kill it. So I did kill the ace, But then he just played out his turn and swung at me for 9,000 with his leader into my 7,000 power leader. And that was enough to win the game because I only had the two 1Ks in hand, and his jaw absolutely dropped. He didn't expect that to be the game ending. We actually had played it a whole nother game in the time of round one because of how quickly that played out. But yeah, just what a crazy start to the day when I'm more intentionally down on counter than I've ever been in my entire time playing the deck. And yeah, just for that to be the sequence that plays out into like a favorable matchup with that opener, could have been a very easy way to tilt out of the day. Really, it could have ruined my entire day. And some people probably would have said I've been justified in being that frustrated. But we played it out, and we played through the rest of the day. So that was round one though, and a pretty funny start to it. So. All right, so coming back from that quick gameplay, um, all right, I guess I could have been pretty frustrated, but honestly, I was laughing, telling people the story, like just how do you even prepare for that, right? Round two, we go in and we see someone that we've seen around locals. I've never played against him before. He's playing red yellow Sabo. I win the die roll and elect to go first. I mulliganed, got Newgate Nami. The Nami turn one was able to get me my Zoro for turn two. They played a 6 cost Big Mom, but which in this deck and the card economy that I have to fight uphill against is probably better against me than a lot of other leaders. Your 5 life leaders aren't as concerned with that trade off, I think. But it's a pretty solid card. It's a 7K body for them to have as well. They ended up kind of going up to the top of their curve with like a Kitten Killer, and then the Big Mom, and played the Kitten Killer, swung, and put the Kitten Killer back in their life, and then swung at me with the Big Mom. And because their Big Mom was a 10K and where they were in their life, I just played or she was a 9K because of the Sabo leader effect buffing her through my turn. I actually gear 5 at the top of my curve. I kind of swung the Newgate into him, and then gear 5, and then used the gear 5 to remove the Big Mom after I attacked his hand a little bit. Then the following turn, they played a dragon and swung at me, and I countered out of that with a couple rad beams that I had available to me. They forgot to put their dragon back in life as they passed the turn to me. So kind of a little bit of an awkward like mishap, but I did have a Tsunami on board from my Gear 5 turn, where given the game state, if he had done that, I would have gone 8, 8, 12 and gotten there anyways. Um, because my Gear 5 following turn would have put me at 8 active Don, put 6 on Nami because he had 3 cards in hand and the way he countered out previously. I would have known to then, yeah, kind of make my Gear 5 or my leader and my Nami swing equivalent because the top life is a brick. I know it is a dragon right at that point. So I would have still been able to get there had they not kind of made that slight mishap. But yeah, just one of those things where at a regional level it's kind of tough. You kind of want to give that back to your opponent, but it is there's a lot on the line too. It's kind of a hard decision there. But yeah, 1-1 now at this point and going into round three. So now we hit our first Doflamingo of the day. Like I said, we did plan and are planning to beat this deck. So we lose the die roll. He elects to go first. They played a slightly slower turn, and because I played 2 Namis, they did play a pudding. And after the game, he even said had I only played 1 Nami, he may not have played it. But my 2 Nami searches were for a Gear 5 and a Radical Beam, and then my new hand had, I don't know, 3 other cards, and then the Gear 5 and the Radical Beam still. The finish here was insanely close. They were pressuring me pretty aggressively. I was running low on cards, and I had a queen on board. And I took my last life just because I wanted to see some more cards and make something happen. Um, and I did end up seeing an Usohachi out of that last life, and I drew a second Usohachi. And I'm actually going to cut here again and kind of run through this final kind of sequence because um, it was played pretty tightly. Um, you know, given the circumstances, he could have blocked one attack the way that I played it out, but it wouldn't have really made sense to given the circumstances. And then at the end, he said he should have countered out of one of the attacks, but I think if he did it, would have just broken out the math slightly differently. So
yeah, I'll kind of cut here and I'll run through that gameplay real quick or that finish as we close out that game. But very good win.
All right. I hope that's not shaking too much as I get down here. We are in round 3 against Doflamingo. We're basically looking to close out the game here. And he's swinging into me. I'm kind of having a hard time remembering the exact sequencing. I do know the end state was that he had 2 boas and was swinging at me, and I had an opportunity to block. I think I had to block or take. I don't think I could counter out. Maybe I used the Radical Beam earlier. I can't remember. And I do remember having a threat in my hand, but it wasn't enough. It was either a New Gate or a Gear 5, but given the board state, I just didn't have the confidence. He had a massive hand. If I'm recalling correctly, it had to have been 9 cards starting my turn, or as he's kind of resolving these effects. So the last attack, I have the opportunity to block, and I end up taking it because I'm just looking for action. I need a way. Honestly, I'm hoping for Usohachi to freeze boas down or do something that can create an attempt at least. And the life I do get is Usohachi, so there's something. And then I go to my turn, and as I go active, I do draw a second Usohachi. So now he has 1 life, 9 cards in hand, 2 blockers, and I'm trying to create lethal from this game state with 10 Don. My leader is a 6,000, Queen's a 6,000, and my 2 8,000 effects. Eustace Captain Kidd has it on attacking. So what do I do here? I want to pressure cards out of his hand as effectively as I can without encouraging him to block on this first attack. Because if I immediately run out the Usohachis, he immediately goes in full defense mode and is going to start immediately mathing lethal and being much more defensive. So I'm kind of weighing my options and figuring out, obviously, if I'm going to play both these Usohachis, yes, it does negate these 2 blockers, but that's 6 of my 10 Don accounted for at that point. And do I want to commit to that? Is that enough? Is it better to distribute this and try and just swing bigger and make him block? So basically my initial thought here is I need to create pressure without encouraging him to block. And right now what I figure is if I swing my 8K Silver's Rayleigh into his life, he either has to give me 2 2Ks, or if he blocks and wants to keep this boa for next turn, he has to give me 2 cards still because it's a 6-8 into a 6. So I'm honestly, what I want is 2 2Ks here when I swing this 8K in, and that's exactly what I get. He does pitch 2 2Ks. I can't remember what cards they were, but my fancy laws I get to use right now. I'm using my Zoro Zanji kind of shell here with just the Doflamingo leader, just because I have a Warlord's deck for him. But so I'm like, okay, great. It's kind of what I was hoping to see. Hopefully that's basically all your 2Ks. Pay 3, Usohachi, rest down this boa. Pay 3, Usohachi over the Nami, rest down this boa. Still not out of the woods yet. He has, I believe it was 7 cards in hand at this point, and 1 life. So now we're considering how do we want to try and close this out with these 3 attackers most effectively. What I just decided to do is I go for 9 with Eustace Captain Kidd, because now if he does have 2Ks, this is going to at least require 3 cards out of his hand. And this is going to allow me to use Kidd's effect to make my leader a 7,000 base leader. This attack, he asked me, what's my base? I can see he's doing his math. And he takes the 9 and gets this card in hand. Now he's up to 8 cards in hand, if I'm recalling correctly. But I'm 99% sure I am. If anything, he has 1 less card in hand and he had 1 more 2K, but the end state ends up being very close. I activate my leader. I have 7,000, and I say, well, if you took that, I guess I'll just try for the full 11 on my leader. And he counters out of this with 2 cards remaining. This is where I say the math may have been slightly off, but I know he had 2 cards left over, so maybe there was one more 2K in place of these 1Ks, but he went 2K, and I want to say it was 1K, 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 1K to go up to 12, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and counter out. And I go, oh crap, I think I just lost 6K? And he goes, oh crap, I just lost, I don't have anything else. And then he gets a little bit huffy and says, I should have countered out of the 9K. And at first I was like, well, you can't play around 2 boas. I was thinking he meant the rate. I was misunderstanding what he said at first. He said, or the 2 Sohachis, you can't really play around that. He said, no, if I counter the 9K, I just win immediately. And I was kind of like, okay, so if that's the case, so I'm assuming the last life was a brick. I don't know, because if he did the math before taking it, that he could counter out of my 12, then he would be there. So if we say, instead of taking that 9, he counters out. Again, maybe I'm 1 card off here, but either way, the end state would be the same. He would go 7, 8, 9, 10. He would have 3 cards left in hand. I'd still have a 7,000 power leader. So now I'd say, okay, 3 cards in hand. I have my queen still available. I would say, okay, those were 1Ks for a lot of that. Okay, we would say 7, and that would be an 8. So we go 8, 9, 2. Yeah, that's what I would do. I would just go 8 into life. Does he have it? No, he only has 2 1Ks. He takes that, and I'd go 9 into life, and that would be lethal the same. So like in the moment, you got. I obviously you'll see later in the video, I kind of misunderstood where I was right or not right on math too, and it's good to go back over these things. But I don't know how mad he was about that throughout the day, but as he kind of left my table, he was pretty frustrated about it, and now realizing after the fact that that actually wouldn't have made any difference. I would have just pressed different numbers and it would have been the same. Hindsight's 2020. Maybe in the moment I would panic and do something differently. But I don't really think so. I was going for lethal there 100% of the time. So, yeah, I don't know. Good game. And we'll go into back into our recap stats here. Round 4, another Doflamingo. An insanely close finish as we push into the late game of this one. I lost the die roll again. They elected to go first again. I played Zoro on my 4 down turns. I had no other ramp options. He took the opportunity to then bounce it to my hand. I replayed it on my 6 down turn just to have another thing on board. And it kind of helped out. Oh, actually, it's because I was ready for him to pudding. I was expecting him to pudding. And he did. And then at that point, the next turn, I had a Newgate in hand, played that out, followed by a queen. And then as he went to swing back into me, I used a radical beam and a jet gatling to get out of an attack. And I had no cards in hand, and I literally said out loud, let me top deck a gear 5 and throw a party. And I literally did. This top deck gear 5, swing queen, swing Newgate, gear 5, finish. So you could call it luck, you could call it skill. There's a reason we're on 3 of them now because the sun god just comes through. So yeah, very exciting and happy win going into our lunch break here, going 3-1, going into round 5 after lunch. Round 5, we finally get a Lucci. I am a little bit more concerned about this matchup. The concessions that I had to make in the list to be able to play that Dofi matchup out does hurt the Lucci matchup a little bit. They won the die roll. They elected to go first, and they even said out loud they weren't super familiar with our matchup, so I was kind of hoping to be able to run away with it. But I had no ramp going second, and then on 4, 5, and 6, I played Rayleighs. On turn 6, I technically could have played a Newgate instead of a Rayleigh, but either way, they could have killed me on the turn, whether it was Rayleigh or Newgate. They had me dead to rights if they wanted to push it.
and they had a curve where on 7 down they played Jack, on 9 down they played Gecko with a Rebecca, on 11 or the following turn 10 down they played Gecko with another Rebecca, and then the last turn they ended up just using Hina and Jack and some removal to clean up the last Rayleigh before kind of closing it out in a controlled fashion. So can't blame them for being a little bit more controlled with it. Obviously, it is what it is. But yeah, I kind of even almost conceded or kind of showed my hand of saying I lose. But I was given an extra turn to try for something. But yeah, basically I just need them to not hit that exact curve. Either I need that to be able to check the Gecko or the Jack effectively immediately, or I need just the Gecko Rebecca to not happen over and over and over again. Because I did need to just pull cards out of their hand when that happens. Going into round 6. We're now 3-2, and we have our third Doflamingo of the day. I lost the die roll. They elected to go first. I had a pretty solid curve going second. I was able to go Mr. 2 on my 7 down turn. 7 down is when we can play Queen without really being punished. So I play Queen, go back down to 6. Following turn, I go to 8. Leader effect back up to 9. New gate, new gate. So against the stock Doflamingo list, the list that I was expecting to see, I just dominate this game, quite frankly. There's not really much else to say about it. However, this opponent is a very long time Doflamingo main and player, and he's rotated in. He had some very unique tech, but the tech that I saw and ended up turning this game was the OP07 Boa. I think my understanding is most people are electing to play like a Jozu type of effect over a Boa. But man, the fact that she was not only an 8K swinger, but also able to like turn off my Rayleigh for a turn. Um, I turn off my Newgate swing for a turn. They also denied it a queen swing had I wanted it, but um, yeah, just that 8K body on turn 3 and on turn 4 was just enough for them to be able to kind of grind me out. Hadn't really seen that from anybody else. I think against a stock or like the Doflamingo list that I played in my other matches, I just trounced them in that game. But hey, that's what tech's for, right? That's what I'm doing too. So hats off to this guy. I think he said he was going to check out my channel. So if you're watching this, hats off to you for sure. The Sanji combo would have been crazy too, but yeah, again, just kind of one of those things that happens. Can't really be too frustrated with it. Then we get a green Uta around 7. We're now 3-3. I win the die roll and go first. I solid curve, being able to ramp with Mr. 2 on turn 3, Newgate on turn 4. He played 8 cost Kid on his 8 down turn, and with the new Uta blocker, which maybe you haven't seen this, but in the new starter deck for Uta, there is a 4 cost 6K blocker that lets you trash one of your film cards and give a Restodon to a character. So that's a pretty good combo on curve. He played that the turn prior, and then played the Kid on curve, gave it a Don, and rested it to play out, I don't know, some other blocker. I'm blanking on what it was. And had 2 blockers with his 8 cost Kid on 8 down, which was pretty frustrating or pretty hard to deal with. Having my Newgate and a Mr. 2 to swing into it did let me pressure him down to get the blockers down that turn. Then he swung into me and used some I'm Invincible to kind of pressure back into me. The following turn, I cleared the Newgate, or I cleared the Kid with the Newgate and Mr. 2 swings because I had to get rid of the last blocker too. And then I tried to swing into one of his characters because I kind of had a feeling that extra attacker was going to be my downfall. And he was able to count out of that attack on the character, the Nami. In the following turn, he had a Brook to swing 6K, Nami to swing 6K, and then he had his second I'm Invincible to be able to swing 10K at me twice. And if my last life was a counter, I counter out and gear 5 and win 100%. But I was 1K counter short. I had to take one of the 6Ks. I had basically in hand, I had 2 rad beams and 2 2Ks. So I had to 2K out of one of the 6K swings. I let the other 6K swing hit me, and then I got no counter, and I Yeah, and it was just 10K twice, so I couldn't get out. Um, had I gone 2K, 2K, okay. Oh no. Wait, maybe I need to break this down actually. Yeah, we'll cut here too because I thought he just mathed it to where there was no way for me to win, but I just did bad math around the I'm invincible after all. I originally thought I did do bad math, and then talking about it afterwards, I thought he just played it perfectly, but nope, I did bad math. Yeah, okay, we'll cut and I'll show you that real quick as well.
All right, everyone. We're in round 7 against Uta, Green Uta, and we might be realizing that we threw the tournament at this point now. It could have gone worse, but yeah, I think we may have done some bad math here. So these weren't Usopp's, it was a Brook and a Phil Nami, but doesn't matter, they're 5Ks. And my hand is Gear 5, 2 Radical Beams, and 2 2Ks. So he swings his first 6K at me, as he has 9 left over, and I kind of just am going through options and debating whether or not to counter out of this. At this kind of end game, when you kind of know you're at win or lose, or I secure the win next turn, once they had 1 or 2 life in hand, it was enough to where if I untap with my new game, my Gear 5, I win 100% of the time. I wasn't thinking hard about that. You know, maybe he plays some blockers, but then he's not trying to kill me. So he swings the 6K into me, and you know, mentally I'm thinking I don't want to over counter for this, because I'm thinking if I go 2K and he has another I'm invincible, which I don't know that he does. He used one last turn that I knew about. He could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on his leader and go 11 and 11, and I could get out of the first 11, but I need this to be a 2K to get out of the second 11. So I'm thinking about down efficiency and that being a potential play there. I'm thinking alternatively, if he doesn't have an I'm invincible, then I can assume these are his only 2 attacks this turn, and he might go something like a 9 and a 10. And if that is the case, I get out of that every time. We're safe there, regardless of what my last life is and if this hits me or not. So, well, especially if I have this too. Well, I guess if that's what he does, I get out of all of the hits, no problem. I can even use the 2K there. But then I'm also thinking, like, if he tries to divvy it up slightly differently, swing so a little bit bigger, and then pressure. At the end of the day, I think I want to maximize my numbers. I would rather counter out of a 7 or a bigger number, so I'm going to take this and see what he does with his last Don. Hopefully he's not I'm invincible, but either way, we should be in pretty good shape to get out from here. Then he goes, I didn't really think about this line. He goes 6. I have the 2K out of that. Goes 10. I can get out of that. And then I'm invincibles, which also I'm invincible is a 3 cost. Set this as active. And go another 10, and I'm not able to get out of that. And I realized, oh crap, I'm like, did I just throw that game because I did bad math? And we kind of think there for a second, like, we're like, no, actually, that was just very well played by you. You know, not much I could have done there. But I guess if we go back just 1 second, if we go here, because again, if this was a counter of any sort, it doesn't matter, I get out of it all regardless. But of course, it's my second Gear 5. If I 2K out of that, then he goes here, and I 2K out of that. His leftover is then, again, still 10. It doesn't matter either way. If I take it, I get out of the next one. Yeah, so no matter what in that particular scenario, because there's an I'm invincible potential, I just have to counter out of this first attack. or this if that's counter, right, we lock it no matter what. But yeah, that's where I lost the game, was overthinking and overvaluing, trying to not over counter. Obviously, there's an alternative reality where he did have a kid in hand, so there could be a world where I counter out of this and he just goes, okay, play another Eustace Captain kid and a blocker or something, and things get a little bit interesting in a different way. But he basically said he was going for lethal no matter what. He didn't think playing the kid was a winning play at that point after I had removed the last one. But yeah, now going back through that, I could have just secured that game by 2K'ing the first one and then playing it out from there. Because then even at that point, if I 2K out of this one and he goes just the full 11, I'm still able to get out of one of those and I'm good to go. So, yeah, live and learn. But yeah, I guess this is where the fatigue or kind of the round 7 kind of got the better of me, and could have been a closer finish going into the end of the day. But I was already at 3 losses here, so I would have needed some good breakers to get into like a real prizing anyways, the top 64. The top 128 would have just had me stay in for quite a bit longer for, I think it was sleeves maybe, and maybe a Don at that point. So that little stuff can just make or break your day there, right? But very close. Again, if my last life is just any card with counter in my entire deck, we're good. But not always going to be. So, yeah, GG's.
All right, yeah. So going back through that, this is why going back through these things is important. I was saying I had no regrets from this weekend, but yeah, I guess I did just throw that game, just doing bad I'm invincible math. I mean, I knew he had one, and yeah, but that's a little bit frustrating, but that's why we go back through these things, and now I know next time. Um, but yeah, so now we're I want to say at this point 3-4. Yep, 3-4. And we are going to round 8, another Doflamingo. I win the roll. I take first this time. I had a very solid curve, um, being able to play like a Newgate and then back it with an Onami. Actually, very interesting thing with Onami. I don't think I need to like pull up the game, like create this game scenario to kind of walk through it, but maybe I should have put her on the screen, but it's fine. She has an effect that says she's a 4-cost 2K blocker on play. If you have 8 or more Don, trash 1 card and draw 2 cards. And the game scenario was that I had 4 cards in hand: Radical Beam, Uso Hachi 2K, and then I drew an Onami for turn. So I'm sitting there looking at my opponent's hand in turn. I'm kind of thinking, like, if I play this Onami, I trash the Uso Hachi, and I might just, if I draw bricks, I just lose. And if he bounces the blocker even more so, I just throw this whole game away. But I have no action in my hand, and I am trying to kind of pressure him down a little bit. So I did call a judge because I was curious, like, if an enters the battlefield or like an on-play effect. When on-play effects have Don minuses, they are optional. You don't have to Don that my Don minus. My queen, I don't have to use my queen effect. I don't have to use kid effects. But otherwise, I think you kind of do. So I did call a judge over, and he like checked if there was an errata, and he said, you can call the head judge, but I'm fairly certain that you do have to trash the way this reads. You would just have to do the effect. I said, okay, do I go for this? Debating heavily, and at the end of the day, I decide to play it, and I trash the Usohachi, and I draw a Gear 5 and a Mr. 2 Bond Clay 1K. Really, the important thing here is I drew Mr. 2 first, and then Gear 5. The following turn, they use their Marshall D Teach, or they play a Marshall D Teach, use his effect to put a law on top of their deck, swing at me, bounce the Onami. I counter out of that swing, and then I counter out of. You end up countering out exactly of their last attack, and with the bounced Onami being the 1K I needed, importantly. And then I go to my next turn and I play my Gear 5 that I had drawn. And I think I drew like another counter or something for turn. And I win with that Gear 5. So this Onami, 2 things actually extremely important to mention here. is my opponent had 7 cards in hand when I played this Onami. So if you guys might recall from my regional testing videos, I was trying to decide whether I want to play laws or Onamis. Is what's better for me to be able to take away my opponent's card advantage or to better filter my own game plan. And we elected to play Onamis. So if I play a law there, I get value and I lose a turn later 100% of the time because I draw for turn a Mr. Two Bond Clay, and then I have a middling turn where I might be able to try for lethal, but if I'm recalling correctly, the way they countered out, I needed to be able to gear 5 to get through, and um, I would have been 1 card away from a gear 5 had I not played that Onami, cycling away a 2K in a, a very hazardous play. Um, it was phenomenal. So, um, which, wow, good thing it's not an optional play because I may have elected not to do it. But 2, very happy that I made that card choice going into this matchup. So, big finish there. Very happy to now be 500, 4-4. And I heavily consider, honestly, just going home at this point. I want to get home to my wife. I know I'm not in the running for any like meaningful prizing at this point. I think the last game was basically for sleeves or not. Um, and I just didn't want to deal with it. But I did elect to play the last match just for the RP Luffy gang, the Days Pirates, at home. So we did go into round 9, hoping that we don't have to play another lane meta matchup. We did get a Nami gameplay here. So at this point, like I said, I kind of was thinking about leaving or wanting to leave. I sat down or kind of ran over, and I was going to joke to the person that like if they're playing a meta deck, I'm going to actually try. But if they're not, I'm just going to give them the win. He was playing Nami, and I was like, I'm gonna give you the win anyways. Let's play it out real quick just for my YouTube channel. Um, and quite frankly, they won the die roll. They wanted to go second. My top end was 2/7 cost kids, which I did kind of curve into, and then I searched twice, but I didn't see any gear 5s, and they just won. Nami, I think this matchup fundamentally is relatively favored for us. They need to like answer us, and like we do get to develop bodies that challenge them effectively. But realistically, this matchup is extremely polarizing on the basis of gear 5 or not. I feel like when I see a gear 5, I win against Nami like probably 75 to 80% of the time, if not more. And when I don't see a gear 5, I lose against Nami like probably 98% of the time or 85% of the time as well. So it's very polarizing around that. They did also have 2 impel down triggers as their second and third life, so an extra 4 cards definitely didn't help. But it really would have only bought me 1 turn, and not having a gear 5, I would not have been able to close out of the game regardless. So, very cool guy, very nice, kind of funny game to wrap up the day as we're joking and chatting. But yeah, wrapped up 4 and 5. A little bit disappointed. Now going back to that Uta game, I'm a little more disappointed, but yeah, it is what it is. So let's go into our quick kind of wrap up and conclusion here. So we finished 235. I guess technically that's the top half of the event on a technically off meta or rogue deck. So I guess technically I can't be complaining too heavily. But at the end of the day, we want to perform better than this. And looking back at the Uta game, yeah, I guess just doing some bad I'm invincible math. Um, is what it is. But that's my only kind of frustration or kind of mistake of the entire day. Then so be it, I guess. Round 7, it already was 3 wit losses. Basically had me out of the top 64, especially knowing that black yellow Luffy player was sitting next to me around 7, so he was also 3-3. So I know he wasn't helping my tiebreakers too much at that point. But yeah, it's that's the way it goes. Uh, we will continue to push through. I do have a couple treasure cups that are online that I think I'll be able to play in this month as well. But otherwise, we got some more 09 and 8.5 content coming at you guys very soon. Please, if you enjoyed this content at all, like, comment, subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. Tell them RP Luffy's the truth. Everyone's favorite leader is RP Luffy. I feel like I learn that every time I go to regionals. Someone near me or my opponents is always saying how great RP Luffy is. So check out the channel and subscribe as we're pushing into 500 for this month. Thanks, y'all.